वन्दे तां परमेश्वरीं भगवतीं बुद्धिप्रदां शारदाम्।
नमस्कार। सर के बारे में बताने से पहले थोड़ा हमारे कार्यक्रम के बारे में। माई एनईपी प्रकल्प विद्या भारती उच्च शिक्षा संस्थान का एक इनिशिएटिव है। हमारे देश में हम जानते हैं कि पॉलिसीज बनती हैं और हमेशा से यही एक क्रिटिसिज्म रहा है कि पॉलिसी हम हमेशा अच्छे बनाते हैं। वी आर वन ऑफ द बेस्ट माइंड्स अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड, बट हम पॉलिसी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में कहीं ना कहीं पीछे रह जाते हैं। तो हमारी जो एक कोशिश है वो इसीलिए है कि इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के लिए क्या फैसिलिटेट कर सकते हैं, इंस्पायर कर सकते हैं, शेयरिंग कर सकते हैं। हो सकता है कुछ बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस एक यूनिवर्सिटी या कॉलेज में हो, दूसरे को ना पता हो, तो एक दूसरे से कोई किसी एरिया में अच्छा होगा, कोई किसी में होगा, तो वो शेयरिंग करके क्या सबको कॉमन प्लेटफॉर्म में लाकर लर्निंग टुगेदर एंड फेलो ट्रेवलर्स के तौर पर क्या अच्छा कर सकते हैं, इसमें हमारी ये कोशिश है। इसके लिए वेबिनार सीरीज में इसके अलावा और भी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन, मैगजीन, बुक अलग कार्य चल रहे हैं। Webinar series में we have made 35 topics which are divided after thorough research of new education policy, 23 in higher education department and 12 in school education department. So उन्हीं में से एक आज का ये विषय है, काफी इंटरेस्टिंग। मुझे लगता है कि अगर न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी को सक्सेस होना है तो दैट विल डिपेंड ऑन द सक्सेस ऑफ इंस्टीट्यूशनल डेवलपमेंट प्लान्स, बिकॉज उस पर बहुत कुछ डिपेंडेंट है, क्योंकि इंस्टीट्यूट्स को, यूनिवर्सिटीज को ऑटोनॉमी देनी है स्लोली, अभी ग्रेडेड ऑटोनॉमी, और आगे चलकर पूर्ण फाइनेंशियल, एकेडमिक और एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव ऑटोनॉमी की बात है, और उनको उनके इंस्टीट्यूशनल डेवलपमेंट प्लान के हिसाब से ही चलाया जाएगा। इवन फंडिंग जो गवर्नमेंट द्वारा दी जाएगी वो भी उसी पर डिपेंडेंट है। और हम लोग आज बहुत लकी है, मैं कहूँगा कि मैम जो इस विषय पर एक प्रबुद्ध ज्ञाता है, और साथ ही साथ अच्छी वक्ता होने के साथ मैम अपने स्वयं के यूनिवर्सिटी में जहाँ काम कर रही हैं उसको ट्रांसफॉर्म करने के लिए एक विजन के साथ, जो हमारे पास शायद 2000 वर्ष, 2500 वर्ष, 3000 वर्ष पहले जैसा नालंदा था, वैसा वापस एक सीट ऑफ लर्निंग अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड बनाने का प्रयास मैम कर रही है। तो मैम का भी स्वागत है। अधिक समय ना लेते हुए मैं आज के हमारे मॉडरेटर नागलिंगम सर का परिचय सबसे करा देता हूँ। डॉक्टर एम नागलिंगम मास्टर्स ऑफ सोशल वर्क है, उसके बाद पीएचडी की है सर ने कम्युनिटी पार्टिसिपेशन इन टैंक रिहेबिलिटेशन में। अभी आप असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर हैं डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ सोशल वर्क, इंदिरा गांधी नेशनल ट्राइबल यूनिवर्सिटी, अमरकंटक, मध्य प्रदेश में। सर को 20 वर्षों से भी ज्यादा एक्सपीरियंस टीचिंग, रिसर्च और इंडस्ट्री का है। सर कई रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट्स, 10 से भी अधिक पब्लिकेशन, 20 से अधिक प्रेजेंटेशन, पेपर प्रेजेंटेशन, 10 से अधिक सेमिनार, ट्रेनिंग, वेबिनार्स एटसेट्रा फॉर डिफरेंट पीपल ऑर्गेनाइज कर चुके हैं। कई राष्ट्रीय एवं अंतरराष्ट्रीय बॉडीज के सर सदस्य भी हैं। इसके अलावा सर स्टूडेंट एक्टिविज्म में अखिल भारतीय विद्यार्थी परिषद में 1994 से ही एक्टिव हैं। सर विभाग प्रमुख भी रहे हैं 2 बार, और सर तमिलनाडु के 3 टर्म्स स्टेट प्रेसिडेंट भी रहे हैं। स्वागत है आपका श्री नागलिंगम सर, और आपसे रिक्वेस्ट है कि आप कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाएं।
सबको नमस्कार। आज हमारे साथ मोस्ट प्रोमिनेंट लीडर इन हायर एजुकेशन इन साउथ एशियन रीजन, प्रोफेसर सुनैना सिंह जी है, ऑनरेबल वाइस चांसलर ऑफ नालंदा यूनिवर्सिटी, बिहार, which is an internationally acclaimed historical university with the Ministry of External Affairs. Professor Sunaina Singh ji was a Vice President of Indian Council for Cultural Relations, ICCR, New Delhi. Also earlier former Vice Chancellor of the English and Foreign Languages University, popularly known as IFLU, Hyderabad. Madam was Vice Chancellor during 2012 and 17. Professor Singh ji is currently engaged with the task of rebuilding the renowned ancient Nalanda University. The honor of re-establishing the university has been entrusted to her largely because of her compelling leadership. Professor Singh is a distinguished academician and administrator. Madam is also part of various committees including the Indian Council for Cultural Relations Vice President, a member of various committees like Governing Council, Association of Indian Indian Universities, Comprehensive Language Policy of India, Bihar State Audit Advisory Board Bihar, then convener of International Dharma Dhamma Conference during 2018 and 19, also academic advisor of National Cyber Safety and Security Standards. Further, Madam is a member of Board of Trustees India Foundation, which is a think tank association, and Board of Governors Divi's Laboratory Limited India. Currently, Madam is designated of several distinguished national and international academic committees. Professor Singh is engaged in the challenging task of restructuring and redesigning university pedagogical and administrative system. Madam is very expertise in this pedagogical restructuring, redesigning. Few academicians can match her integrity, intellectual caliber and dedication to teaching, research and administration. Further, as a visiting professor at reputed universities abroad, she has played a crucial role in drawing the attention of West towards Indian culture and literature, pedagogical system, epistemological concern and university administration. Dr. Singh is a professor of literature and culture, brings with her rich blend of scholarship, professional integrity and administrative competence. Her impeccable and proven track record as an able and visionary administrator has enabled her to excel in her leadership role, a fact acknowledged by the many prestigious awards she has been conferred with. International noteworthy to mention, International Education Award 2018 awarded in the British Parliament House of Lords, London. Bharat Ratna Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Excellence Award 2018, Bharat Shiksha Ratna Award 2018, Education Leadership Award 2017 by World Education Congress, Bharat Gaurav Award 2016 by IIFS, Chanakya Award for Excellence in Good Governance during 2014, Public Relations Council of India, Woman of the Year Award 2014, Citizens Council of AP, Award for Outstanding Contribution to Education 2014 by World Education Congress, Education Leadership Award 2014. So, such a very prominent person, international renowned person, academician, able administrator is with us today. Thank you very much, madam, to have you for this session, and we are very gifted to have your session today with your rich experience. I am very I am very happy that our audience will be benefited today. Swagat karta hu, madam. Welcome. Thank you. Over to our guest.
Suprabhat, Namaskar, Pranam to everyone. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि NEP को हम कैसे actualize कर सकते हैं. So what is important here is, before we come to looking at IDP, because I thought this is the most crucial part of the journey ahead if we want to realize our dream of national education policy in the coming couple of years. I think it's very important for us to bear in mind, I would say that rather that we remind ourselves of the tremendously rich and vibrant Indian heritage, Indian culture and history before we embark on this mission, because I think it's important that the Indian heritage and knowledge systems that have come through the long corridors of time over 5 to 6 millennia has more substance and meaning even today, relevance in the coming years, more so since we live in an age of turmoil and transition where old certitudes are coming to an end. You know, we no longer believe in a lot of things which held a lot of sense and meaning to our ancestors, to our forefathers. I think it's time to look at ourselves too. It's time to recover our self-esteem, where somewhere India had lost that. And I think NEP is a great platform to look at ourselves again, to look at Indian knowledge systems, to look at our heritage, to look at our culture. So that being, you know, the background of what I'm I plan to speak on IDP. I think it's important to dwell on the transformative nature of NEP. I think this is the first education policy of the 21st century that's intensely transformative. This can actually lead us on to be the global leaders in educational systems, because we are embarking truly on a new path. Now, what does that mean? That means that leadership is very important. And that is where IDP, the institutional development plan. Now, institutional development plan needs to be reassessed from our own perspective. What do we mean by institutional development plan? Now, let me first, I have two parts in this. One is, what does the document tell us? Two, what are the challenges in implementing it? And three, and most importantly, how do we realize this? How do we simplify the roadmap so that we can begin somewhere? I think it's very crucial that we embark on a mission here and not take baby steps, but move very quickly into realizing the dream. Now, what is the institutional development plan? What does the document say? The document says that the institutional development plan is chapter 18 of new education policy. Now, it speaks about the 4 verticals which are very, very crucial to realize the education policy. If we want to develop a plan, have a structure, have a roadmap, how do we, to create a roadmap, we need to map what is there and also to map where we need to move forward to. So that is where the policy seems to be talking, one, about the 4 verticals that it speaks about. One is the regulatory board. Regulation is through National Higher Educational Regulatory Council, NHERC, that we talk about. Now, this is a very crucial body that's going to help institutions to evolve into centers of learning, centers of expertise, centers of innovation, centers of knowledge. I think it's very important that we look at how do we create knowledge. If we look at our ancestors, we had a number of leaders there who actually created knowledge that seemed to be more relevant today than earlier. All the European and the Western philosophers quote them and swear by them, whereas India itself is not aware of it. So I think we need to work on that front. But National Higher Education Regulatory Council is actually an effort to relook at how do we repeal our act or statutes, how do we restructure our educational paradigm, the pedagogical steps, how do we redo everything, keeping in mind the kind of autonomy that NEP promises. Now, this is, I think, a landmark shift from the earlier education policies that we had decades ago. The one thing that it promises is autonomy to institutions and faculty to carve out new structures, new courses. So that being the criteria for institutional development plan, NHERC plays a crucial role here. Now we look at what does it talk about? It talks about good governance. Now, if we take a look at good governance, I think it's very important to look at the leaders. Institutional leaders need to be chosen very carefully if we are looking at institutional development plan. Who can lead an institution? If you ask me, leaders should lead without compromising on anything. I think it's very important that a leader who does not need to be a friend, but needs to be a true leader, inspire and ensure that the changes, transformations happen, ensure that the courses are reinvented constantly, ensure that that one can work with commitment and passion in the institution. I think these are some of the very important characteristics of leadership, because the foremost being honesty and integrity, because without that the citadel of knowledge will not be able to hold itself very high. I think that is where it's very important that we choose our leaders very carefully. We look at their background, we study their integrity quotient, and only then embark on that. So when we talk about the regulation, the first is the regulatory body that who need to look at it. The second is accreditation. Now accreditation, the body that we have is NAC. But it also, the IDP promises that there can be a meta-accredited body also. Now, accreditation becomes more and more relevant with the changing context of time, how knowledge seems to be evolving, because knowledge needs to be in tune with the changing paradigms of global demands. If we look at the way the climate change is happening, the way global warming seems to be right at the threshold and threatening the very life structures, I think it's very important the research in this direction takes place. So nature also tells us as to in which direction research should evolve. I think these are things that we need to keep in mind. We also keep in mind that as we move forward, we need more and more compassionate universities. Universities that can develop the intellect, the emotional well-being, as well as your ability to create new systems. So a combination of head, heart, and hands. You know, that this is very important. All the three elements, because arts and crafts are also important, the tools of the trade that need to be. So for that, I think it's very important that we take a look at new education system that we have right in front of us, which says that let there be, for example, you know, with mathematics, carpentry, you know, it can be arts and crafts, it can be music. So let there be different branches of learning that can actually bring softness, evolve your emotional capabilities. So NAC therefore acquires a new identity because it will be creating a new ecosystem. And that's where I think it's important that institutional development plan that we talk about is also about autonomy and self-governance. It's about levels of quality enhancement. How do you do that? I think that is where I think we need to look at campuses. Are we talking about magnificence of a campus, or are we talking about magnificence of the courses? What kind of courses are these? How often have they been audited? Was there ever a SWOT analysis? Have we done a SWOT analysis of our courses? Institutions particularly. You know, the anthropologist Andrea Murray said that institutions have much to lose if they lose their values. So every institution is driven by a value, by a paradigm, by an ethos, by its own commitment to a cause. What kind of an institution is it? So each institution needs to look at, you know, have periodic SWOT analysis of its strengths, of its weaknesses, how it can build on it. I think IDP is all about that too. So while the regulatory bodies apart from regulation, accreditation, funding, and then the academic standard. These are the 4 pillars that we are talking about, because academic planning and standard is about General Education Council that seems to be working on it, which needs to be in place. So the 4 verticals take care of these 4 things, because the Grants Council, you have Higher Education Grants Council, and grants can, it promises that there cannot, grants are not restricted in any which way, and grants can be determined by your own quality enhancement. How have you benchmarked yourself? What has been your growth radar? How have you grown? What are the scales that you can actually count and say that we have progressed in the direction of developing new courses, or we have courses that are on the menu and students can do different courses at the same time? Do we have have we evolved a credit bank for our students, where they can add extra credits as well? What has the university done? What has the institution at its own individual level done? I think this is very important. Through these 4 verticals, the NEP is actually telling each institution that you reassess your own strengths and weaknesses. You reassess how you need to move forward. Do you have a short-term plan? Do you have a long-term plan? How do you look at yourself? Do you have a 3-year structure that you would want to review every 3 years? Or is it an ongoing thing? Every year I look at myself and say that, these are the courses I'm happy, because these are inventive, these are relevant for the next couple of decades, but some of the courses are not relevant. Some of these courses need to be reviewed again and again. So we need to keep motivating our faculty, ensuring that they also think afresh, because education is all about how inventive can we get. How do we remodel our own education system? Remodeling is very important. The moment we are stuck in our mental silos of goodness, then we will not move forward. Every time you get comfortable in your chair, it's important to shift that chair. It's important to move out and create another zone of perfection. I think that is what IDP is all about. And that is where the nuts and bolts of it come. And that is the curricula. The curricula, I think, is the primary motive of an institution. Because we are not here just for knowledge transfer. We are creating knowledge. So what kind of a curricula do you have that can inspire students to create new paradigms of research? Because courses should merely be a springboard from where the student takes off, from where the faculty takes off. So how do we reinvent ourselves? So the courses have to be that promising. And one should always ensure that the content is not imported from somewhere else. I think this is also a form of plagiarism. And so that's something I'm very, very particular about. In any institution, when the faculty look at redoing the courses, it should be ensured that we are not importing content from outside, copying it, and information is available at a click of a mouse. So we are not looking for information, we are looking for knowledge. So that is where the reflective tradition of India comes into force. Some time back, I'm so glad we always start with Saraswati Vandana. Saraswati has this rosary bead, and in one hand there is book, and in the other hand there is a rosary bead. And that's the reflective tradition. Whatever you study, the knowledge that you have acquired has to be reflective. You know, you need to reflect on it, which is critical thinking in many, many ways. And critical thinking does not exist in a vacuum. It has to be related to your context. You know, how do you relate it? How do you look at it? How do you reflect? Are we teaching our students the art of reflecting? You know, that is very important, I think, in educational content that we are creating. It is not just informative. It's not just historical data. It's more about the historical data, and the content should be a springboard. So that's one point I thought is very important to dwell on. The fourth pillar of it that we look at is the General Education Council. Now, this looks at the academic standards. You know, how do you determine academic standards is something that every institution must think for itself. It's not for NAAC to tell us. It is not the accreditation body who should tell us that your academic standards should be benchmarked here. I think institutional development plan should take into account all these factors. Without this, I don't think we can move forward in developing an institutional plan. The other thing is the funding aspect, you know, which promises that if you are able to scale yourself higher, if you are able to evince the progress that you have made and how you have been innovative in your research, because the Research Council also plays a very important role. And I think that that's again one of the highlights of NEP. Research, I think, also needs a SWOT analysis at every level. If institutions are taking up some research, could be PhD scholars or faculty research, is it peer reviewed? You know, is the research repetitive? Are we giving areas that have been done to death? What are the areas that need to be looked at? I think research again needs to be innovative. If that is not done, then the meaning of research is lost. So I think in the institutional development plan, what matters most is the research quotient. I think that's where institutions need to dwell on. And, you know, these are some of the things I thought are very, very important where we plan an institution, and a leader must learn to evolve every day. You know, a leader must never rest even a day, I feel, because you need to keep on moving. You need to keep everybody on their toes, because people need to be active, alert. You know, agility is part of education system. If your mind is not agile, then you are not agile in any format, because your education also needs to be flexible. That is where we are saying have a wide menu of courses, you know, where one can take carpentry, mathematics, anthropology, one can do chemistry. So not to be trapped in any silos, multidisciplinary educational institutions that we are creating, the 3 kinds of institutions that NEP talks about. And I think that's a great way to move forward. There are some of them are degree awarding colleges, you know, some are teaching and research institutions. So these are important ways of moving forward. If we are able to identify ourselves and create a niche in the particular area, I think one will be able to actualize the dream of NEP. Now, what are the challenges? I think the challenges to my mind would be, how do you get these committees when you're talking about a pan array of accreditation, for example? How do you plan National Higher Educational Regulatory Council that we are talking about, which is to review its own statutory tenets, acts, statutes, because if you are remodeling your education, then your regulatory statutes also needs to be remodeled. Your act also need, which is again a very big thing, because here you need to look at, and my main worry would be that when we do this, we also deal in some way with the bureaucratic hassles. I think that is where the Ministry of Education should give us a free run to look at, and also get eminent bodies to look at act and statutes. Let them see what exactly is the institution mandated to do. You know, is this institution purely a medical institution, or is it fine arts? Is it, because we do have, you know, India has diverse education systems. We don't have one education institution. The diversity that we have cannot be beaten by any other country. And the number of institutions, the number of degree awarding institutions, I think these are very, I think it's the second largest education system in the world. So we do have, we will have challenges here when we are trying to look at the nuts and bolts of the regulatory authorities and act and statutes. The other thing which can be a challenge, these are challenges, and challenges we generally say are opportunities. And I do believe in that, because you need to look at, if this is my challenge, then how do I find solutions? How do I create a roadmap out of this challenge? The road not taken is always the best road to take, because you need to create your own road. So it's very important that you create that semblance and synergy where statutory bodies help you in creating a new institution, creating a new institutional plan, so that it's a challenge, can be done, can be worked out. One should keep a year aside just for this, for institutions to work on it and to come up with a plan of how the NHERC can help them, because there is a body here which will help, and this is probably at the institutional development plan level the highest body, because they are going to be extremely helpful. And it's important that we have clarity in our mind as educational leaders, and I'm talking about every institutional leader here. The second challenge could be that when we look at our courses and we want to reinvent our courses, it's important that we look at our own faculty, the nature of the educational paradigm that is already created in the institution. If it's already there, then how do you incentivize? One, how do you motivate? How do you change the mindset? Now that again depends on the leadership, and these are things that are easily done. I don't find that a huge problem. That's not a huge problem at all. It depends on the leader to motivate the faculty. There could be one or two who may not be willing to evolve or change. There are always personalities like that we face on a day-to-day basis. Now you just have to, you should not give up on that. People, I somehow like, the concept of you need to work and deliver. There is no other alternative. If you do not deliver, then you're not there. As simple as that. I think it's very important that in the institutional development plan, we create one parallel that every faculty, every administrator only works towards uh, delivery mechanism. How do you deliver? How do you innovate on a day-to-day basis and not go by the practices that we have? Because the most comfortable zone in life is to follow some practice somebody has put across without asking any questions, without thinking about it, because that's the easiest formula to follow. You're not applying your mind, or one is too lazy to do it. So that kind of a thing we should not allow that in institutions. So I think it's an easy road, provided you are very clear about it. So not to give up on these small things which will help us move forward. So when we look at our faculty, we need to look at our courses again and tell them that they have the autonomy to draw out a new course. Give them the autonomy to draw new courses, and a leader should be willing to listen to new ideas where courses are concerned. Can you have music and mathematics? Can you teach Vastu Shastra, which deals with mathematics, which deals with human psychology at another level? It deals with emotional well-being at yet another level. So are we foregoing our own knowledge systems also? If you look at our own knowledge systems, I think it's important that we have a sprinkling of Indian ethos, as part of our institutional plan. We cannot, science and technology should go along, not just with liberal arts, but it should go along with the ancient knowledge systems. What were we known for? What were our Dharma Shastras known for? What were our Nyaya Shastras known for? These are very important structures that teach human values as well. And I think that's one area that there's a lot of deficit in the system. I think these are things that we need to bear in mind. The other huge challenge would be, while there are too many webinars, I'm being very, very frank here, pardon my being so, we have a number of webinars, and some of these are very relevant and important, but some are merely just trying to showcase that they are doing something about NEP, but actually nothing is happening. If you take a critical look, it's just to showcase that they are. So that kind of a thing we should get down to work. And if we say that the first thing institutions should do is to take a look at their research, point number one. Point number two, their courses. Start somewhere. So if you are doing these two things to begin with, then it's imperative that you do a SWOT analysis. Now, SWOT analysis is of two kinds. One, you get a technical professional body to do it. The other is you yourself do it. You involve your faculty, you yourself get involved, the leaders I'm talking about. And you will know where the institution is lacking in some segments, where are the minus points, where are the plus points, and then you work out on it. So I think we need to tell our institutions to first create a document of SWOT analysis, look at our weaknesses and strengths, and also the steps forward, the roadmap. Create a small roadmap which is, which can be done within a period of 3 to 6 months. Then you look at your courses and see, are the courses relevant for next 25 years? Are they relevant for a decade at least? Do we have room to create new courses which are the demands of time? Epidemiology, look at the pandemic, what about the social aspect of it? What is the psychological aspect of it? So that kind of a thing, and I think it can easily be done. So we need to dwell on new areas of emerging challenges and work on it. We have to anticipate a lot of things and work. A good leader is also a leader who can anticipate, what can happen, and then work towards finding solutions to issues here. I think this is very crucial. I think the first step is a review of all the courses, institutional wise, and without any threat to faculty that they will lose their chair. I think it's very important that people are not insecure and not made insecure as well. Because to my mind, the capacity building is all about the fact, it begins with the faculty. You building your own capacity, as a first step. So that can be done, and I find a lot of youngsters raring to go. There's a lot of enthusiasm, zest about NEP. I think national education policy is one of the most exciting things to happen in India. It's a landmark change. It's a transformative leadership that comes through NEP. I think this is, we need to invent and keep reinventing ourselves. I think on that note, I will stop and I'll take up any queries, questions, doubts. Q&A is there, I guess. I hope I haven't taken more time.
Right. Thank you very much, madam.
Cross time, or is it okay?
It's completely okay.
No, you have sufficient time, madam. You have sufficient time. Exactly, you have completed, and we can have a few Q&A. Thank you very much. On the selected topic today, institution development plan, Professor has covered various aspects under this broad heading, like governance, leadership, SWOT analysis. Madam discussed in detail, which will be helpful to all the university leaders, authorities, professors to assess their own university's standard. Curriculum, which is very most essential thing in institution. Madam emphasized about it, and explained about the multidisciplinary courses, programs, and very importantly, Madam has touched about the roadmap. What would be the vision for our institution next 25 years, at least in 1 decade? So visualizing our own institutional growth after 10 years, how would it be? So these are the very interesting and enlightening points, Madam. Thank you very much for your wide coverage, very comprehensive coverage you have done. Thank you. Let us go for a few questions. Sudhagarji, please help me. Madam, I have one question before taking the question from the participants. Madam, you mentioned about grants commission. The grants will be determined by the quality of the institution. So quality, what are the parameters? This will be assessed, indicators of the quality, which will determine the more grants in the coming days.
The NEP is very clear. It says that grants are connected with quality. This is also to incentivize the institution that the more you bring in inventive courses and research, it would be, you will be rewarded for it. The other important aspect is transparency, because they talk about the criteria is going to be transparent, but we need to put up everything on our website or be open to assessment of any kind, because progress made on implementation, much depends on that. So HEGC, that is Higher Education Grants Council, will look at how transparent the institution is, what has been its implementation mode, what has been its growth radar, has it benchmarked itself in some ways. So these are the criteria that it looks at, and also the research quotient. What kind of research is emerging? I think it's very important for institutions to record their research, not just put the research dissertations or papers in the library, but also to say that these are the landmark research that has happened and share it with the policy makers. Unless we send it to government, our research has no meaning. So every year when we look at our annual report has again become just a ritual. You just record everything and you send. It goes to the parliament, it goes to the ministry. But I think the university itself, the institutions should make a note of the kind of research emerging out of the institution. So when you showcase that your research is very relevant, it's innovative, I think the Grants Council will fund you adequately. So I think this is a very healthy way to move forward.
Thank you very much, Professor. Then next question by Sudhagar, Mr. Sudhagar.
हेलो जी मैम, नमस्ते। मैम, मैं सुन रहा था आपको, तो एक क्वेश्चन जो मेरे मन में आया, आपने ऑटोनॉमी पर बात की और अच्छी लीडरशिप पर भी बात की, एंड यू सेड दैट हाउ क्रिटिकल इट इज टू एक्चुअली मेक और ब्रेक एनीथिंग। तो मैम, जैसे हम ऑटोनॉमी की बात करते हैं, तो क्या हमारे पास वैसे लीडर्स हैं? ये मैं इस बैकड्रॉप में कह रहा हूँ कि मैम, अगर ऑटोनॉमी आएगी तो उसके साथ अकाउंटेबिलिटी भी आएगी, एफिशिएंसी भी आएगी और फाइनेंशियल प्रोबिटी भी आएगी। पर अगर हम इंडिकेटर्स देखें और इवन जो पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस भी हमारा यूनिवर्सिटीज में रहा है, तो ये चीजें अभी उतनी नहीं है। इवन छोटे छोटे कामों के लिए बहुत वेट करना पड़ता है, दौड़ना पड़ता है। तो कहीं वो ऑटोनॉमी हम जो सोच रहे हैं कि बहुत अच्छा हो, कहीं उससे उल्टा ना हो जाए, तो ये बैलेंस कैसे होगा और ये कैसे इंश्योर होगा कि ऑटोनॉमी मिल रही है तो उसका सदुपयोग ही हो रहा है, दुरुपयोग नहीं हो रहा है?
देखिए, ऑटोनॉमी अनफेटर्ड तो कहीं नहीं होती, इसीलिए तो इतने रेगुलेटरी बॉडीज वी आर क्रिएटिंग। अनलेस यू शो क्वालिटी यू विल नॉट बी फंडेड, unless you show progress you will not be. So you need to keep working on it. So that's point number one. The other is, I quite agree with you that today you look at leaders, probably you know accountability may be missing, but I firmly believe that India is land of so many talented people. We can get good leaders. It's just that we need to be free of other ramifications here and look at people who are intellectually of a high caliber, as well as have the leadership and are motivated enough to develop institutions. People who are selfless in their institutional building. I think that is very important. Accountability, I think, has to be second nature to any leader. That should be the primary goal, because without that, you cannot move forward. One also needs to be accountable to not just your own institution, but to your own nation. You are reflecting the national knowledge network, so as to say, because when we go abroad or when we showcase our institution, we are actually showcasing our latent talent as well as accountability, how we have evolved the institution. So I think that's a very crucial factor. There should be systems, I think now, with light but tight regulatory bodies that NEP promises. The financial probity becomes the most important. I think online is the only way to ensure that things are there in a certain format and structure. I don't know what to say about some of them not having it, because then we have not chosen our leaders carefully. Even if it takes a little while, I think it's very important that we find out from different sources that there should be some way, and just 2 or 3 people should not decide the destiny of an institution. I think it's very important that we look at, because ultimately a leader is actually carving the destiny of an institution, carving the future of an institution. So it's very important that we look at highly motivated, selfless people who can, change the root of knowledge. That's easily said, but difficult to, but not that problematic. I think we can still achieve this. There are a lot of good people in India. 2 or 3 or 10 bad people cannot, sort of bring a bad name to institutional ethos. So we should be careful about that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. One question received from participant, madam. What should be the targets for an institution for the next years?
That's why I said that we need to start somewhere. I think one should start. The target should be, benchmarking yourself, and you target for next 2 years that you will be achieving this. So many new courses, not just create a innovative hub in the institution, but nothing gets done there. So you just have the label there and things don't get done. It should not be that way. But how do we next 2 years, how do we innovate, be it our research, our courses, or administrative structures or governance? How do you credit yourself or accredit yourself? Can institutions very honestly say where they are in 1 to 10 marking? Where do they stand? Before we go to accreditation authority, I think self-evaluation is very important. So 2-year target, and you look at your courses, research, innovation, you begin there, and you take another look at your faculty, have a number of meetings, because leadership is also about keeping your flock together, enthusing them. The faculty should be, and those of them who don't work, I think we also need to have exit routes. I firmly believe in that, because entry and exits are very important. And people have to show that they're talented enough, they're good, and they can innovate, keep innovating themselves. So this is very important. And have also faculty who will do research in our own knowledge systems. It's high time research is undertaken on our own knowledge systems, the ancient knowledge system. So that also we should create, parallels and verticals here within an institution. What kind of research will we focus on, depending on the institutional I think we should look at that. If it is a science institution, let them look at mathematics or scientific advancement, say about a millennial ago. Or
Thank you. Thank you, madam.
targeted, because I believe 5 years is a very small time. Because I find that 2 years, 3 years, when I benchmark myself every year, I need to see that I have achieved the goals that I have set for myself. Otherwise I just drive my administration and faculty, push them in that direction. We need to achieve. So you need to create your own targets, your goals, and then move forward.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Mrs. Sudhakarji received a couple of questions from the participants. Over to Sudhakarji.
मैम डॉक्टर सुशील कुमार तिवारी हैं, उन्होंने हमें ज्वाइन किया है. He writes, respected ma'am, don't you think we read more about research, its methods and designs, but many of these theories are either not applicable or not being applied by majority of the scholars. How can we apply the research and innovations at ground level to move forward or to realize the goals of sustainable development or of self-reliance?
That's a very good question, I would say, because application of research is possible at the ground level only when your research is of that caliber, when it is applicable, when it's a groundbreaking research and you find that this is something that is doable. That's why the action plan of research and the research outcomes are very important. Sustainable development, ecology and environment, if we just stick to these two areas, there are a lot of segments here which can be applicable at ground level. That is where you need to have research. Say waste management. Now I'm creating a campus, which is completely sustainable. It's a huge challenge. One cannot imagine, because being in Bihar and trying to create a completely sustainable campus is not easy, particularly when you don't have structures here. But we are not giving up. We're still working on it, which means that the research that has been done so far is being actualized here on the ground. You have water management. How do you have waste management plants? These are the research that have been done recently in some of the institutions. Then you're also looking at zero carbon in every which way. The excavated ground is transformed into bricks and they are put to use. So that's again a very sustainable kind of I'm just giving you an example. The other thing that I would like to point out through example, the NEP talks about exit routes. You can go out with a certificate. I've already created that, 2 years back. And our current MBA program in sustainable development has an exit route with diploma, 1 year. So these are at one level, the courses, the other level, the research. So that is why I said a SWOT analysis of your own research quotient. What kind of research is emerging out of your institution? Is it applicable? Can it be applicable at ground level? Can it be transformed into policy making bodies? Can we share it with them? Can there be policies on it? So that's something for the institutions to look at. Currently, it's not happening. We all know that. Or maybe happening in some areas, but we are not sharing it. So it's something that we need to be more mindful about. That's where leadership becomes very important. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, ma'am, surely.
Then madam, there is a hand raise by one person. Mushukar BS has raised his hand. Please, sir. Sir, please. You will be unmuted. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. B.S. Madhukar, formerly at the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, and working with them for a lot of years, and recently opted for VRS so that I could contribute from outside this. I want to know from maybe Madam Singh, who has been, I met her once in Hyderabad also. What do you feel, or what is your judgment on the impact of assessment so far, and what could be the change that is required to make it a skill movement? And in the new education policy, weight has been given on this accreditation area. What you see should be the important in this area?
Thank you, Madhukarji. You're asking two questions here. One is the impact analysis, and what could be the dynamic change in accreditation which can add value, if I understand you correctly. Yeah, I'm not able to hear you now. But impact analysis, I think, is something that institutions do just when NAC is to come to their institutions. Quality assurance should be an ongoing process, and impact analysis again has to be done on an annual basis when you're doing your reports. I think it's very important we look at the learning outcomes, the impact analysis, all about the outcomes here. So I think the institutions do it every 5 years when NAC comes to visit. But I thought that the accreditation body comes from outside. It's an objective body that assesses you. I personally feel institutions should learn to assess themselves to begin with, and they should know how they benchmark themselves, and that therefore the impact analysis and the outcome becomes very relevant. Now, how does the accreditation body make a further value addition? I think it's important that the people who come to institutions, I have seen this in Central University that I have been, because the institution that I headed earlier, for the first time NAC visited, I ensured that it happened after many decades actually, and we got an A grade, somewhere around closer to A+. The thing is that the faculty, the deans, the administration, I give full credit to my team out there who had worked, day in and day out to ensure that the impact analysis is done, what kind of work has been done. So individually it can be done, but the people who come to assess the caliber of those people, also needs to be assessed. Who's coming to evaluate? Because a team comes. In a team, probably 2 people are excellent, but the other 2 may also have their vote. What is their caliber is something that worries me all the time, because I've headed NAC committees. I know how it is. So I find that area needs to be worked out, because integrity of the individuals who assess is very important. Very, this is crucial for assessment, So one should look at integrity quotient, be it in a leader or when you're sending assessment bodies. That's very important, to my mind.
थैंक यू वेरी मच मैम. मैम, डॉक्टर अलका मुदगल, उनका प्रश्न है, गुड मॉर्निंग मैम, दिस इज HOI ऑफ एजुकेशन एट MIT यूनिवर्सिटी. Every time we talk of quality, we look forward to foreign university. What role the leadership has to play to avoid this? Because we have so much worth preserving and promoting.
I guess that's more the kind of it comes from our obsession with the West or the colonial mindset. We have still not been able to decolonize our mind. So for us, excellence is only in the West, and it is not in our. That's why I said the first thing is to recover our self-esteem. It's very important, and NEP gives that opportunity in education sector. It's very important. So that's why I said let's not import content. We are copying all the time. Plagiarism of any kind, be it in thought process or in getting a few things, we can look at good examples and follow. But don't copy everything, because one needs to be inventive all the time, for which one needs to be mentally very agile, and one needs to look at how do we develop knowledge quotient. For us, knowledge is attuned, connected with wisdom. It's connected with emotional well-being. If we look at our own Indian ethos, it's hugely connected with wisdom. And one of the finest proof of this are our Upanishads, which are nothing but a dialogue between teacher and the guru and shishya, through which new knowledge has emerged constantly. So I think this is an example. So we should stop looking outside. If at all you're looking, then you find good examples that you can follow, because I like the professional ethics of our institutions abroad. We lack in that. So professional ethics needs to come in. So how do we take good examples and create your own niche? That's very important.
यस मैम, थैंक यू मैम। एक और रिकरिंग थीम मैम जो मैंने नोट किया था आपके स्पीच की बात की कि डिफरेंट जो कोर्सेज हैं एंड आपने उनके रेलेवेंस की बात की कि हम कैसे कॉम्बिनेशंस बना सकते हैं, जैसे आपने बोला कि म्यूजिक भी ऐड कर सकते हैं क्या, और फिर बात की कि वो रेलेवेंट हो। मैम जैसे अब बीच में हेल्थ आपने लाया कि अभी एपिडेमियोलॉजी की बात हो रही है बट पहले इतना नहीं होता था, एंड देन नॉलेज या रिसर्च उस पर नहीं है। एंड देन इंजीनियरिंग, मैम मैंने इंजीनियरिंग किया तो उस समय हम ऐसा पढ़ते थे कि आवर प्रोफेसर यूज्ड टू टेल अस कि ये जो हम मशीन पढ़ रहे हैं ये 80s 19 में ही यूज में बंद हो चुकी है, अभी इंडस्ट्रीज में कुछ और है, बट देन स्टिल वी आर रीडिंग अबाउट इट। एंड देन इन सोशल साइंसेज आर्ट्स ऑल्सो बहुत सी नई थ्योरीज आती हैं, या अगर टेक्नोलॉजी में ही ब्लॉक चेन है, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस है, तो जो हमारे कोर्सेज होते हैं वो लेटेस्ट डेवलपमेंट से हमेशा कुछ ना कुछ पीछे ही है। तो ये गैप, आपने भी इस पर बहुत बात किया, ये गैप कैसे कवर हो सकता है मैम डिफरेंट फील्ड्स में, ताकि हम एक्चुअली फ्यूचरिस्टिक तैयार रहें कि आज से 15 वर्ष बाद ये यूजफुल होगा, तो हम आज ही हमारे पास वो काडर हो, वो वर्कफोर्स हो।
You know, I firmly believe that every institution should be a future institution. So I will not call it a global institution, but a future institution. And that's how I'm developing, while our roots are firmly placed in the ancient knowledge systems. उसको मैं बार बार इसको दोहराती हूँ क्योंकि हमारे पास multidisciplinary systems. You take Nalanda, Takshashila, Odantapuri, Vikramshila, you take these ancient institutions. You had, defense training as well as spiritual training. You had emotional well-being, you had Arthashastra, you had you were looking at mathematics and logic together, you're looking at Nyaya Shastra, you're looking at Panini's grammar, which has been Chomsky came much later on, and what he has said is something that Panini had said ages ago. So there are a lot of examples in our own institutional mechanisms. That's why I said our roots should be firm, where multidisciplinarity was there. So you need to have different courses, which can be, now we have BSc, we have only sciences. So how do you merge? So we break those silos. We break those silos. That's one. The relevance of the courses for future, which means that our faculty have to be constantly in their research mode. You need to look at, because I find people very often, I'm surprised. I used to walk into my faculty's classes very often. It's something they have learned ages ago, they're teaching. So it's lost its relevance. So you need to update your own knowledge. You also need to see in which direction knowledge is going. In US, the moonshot research, the cancer that they keep funding, and they say in next 20 years, we will have research in this particular, we will find for the pandemic. I think it's a huge success story that within no time, the vaccine is going to be out there in public domain. Earlier, it used to take 30 years for the research to happen and fine. So we need to have moonshot research, as it is called in the West, that lets you identify this area is potential, like global warming. This is an area that needs intense research. Can there be solutions? What can be done? So things like that. I think we need to energize our faculty. Somewhere I feel the energy quotient very often is depleted once you have a job. So I think that job security takes away, I don't know what it is, or institutions. That's where I feel leadership matters. It matters.
Thank you, ma'am. One more question which I have received from Kriti Bajpayee. Ma'am, not directly related to institutional development plan, but definitely related to universities, health and leadership. Ma'am, nowadays we are talking about having courses, even in universities, in local languages, in regional languages, or in Hindi, even technical courses. Earlier 2-3 days ago, even Education Minister announced that we are going to start some courses of engineering in regional languages in NIT. We will offer them. तो मैम आपको क्या लगता है, इसमें कुछ लोग ऐसा कहते हैं कि शायद कठिन होगा उसको पढ़ना, हम इंग्लिश में ही रखें, और कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि ये कोर्सेज जैसे इवन आप यूनिवर्सिटीज में हम उसको रीजनल लैंग्वेज में ऑफर कर पाएं, और बहुत सारी ऐसी कंट्रीज हैं जो एक्चुअली अगर जर्मनी है तो वो जर्मन में ही पढ़ रहे हैं, या यूरोप या चाइना है तो वो चाइनीज में ही पढ़ रहे हैं। बट हमारे यहाँ एक बहुत बड़ा डिबेट है, अगर हमारे यहाँ बोल दें कि हिंदी या रीजनल लैंग्वेज में करना है तो पता नहीं लोग क्यों उसको ऐसे ऐड कर लेते हैं कि अगर इंग्लिश की नॉलेज नहीं होगी तो लोग वर्ल्ड लेवल पर कहीं ना कहीं पिछड़ जाएंगे। तो इस पे क्या आपका टेक है मैम, और क्या आप अपने यहाँ ऐसा कोई एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रही हैं?
हाँ, इसके दो एस्पेक्ट्स है, बहुत सिंपल है। आप देखिए, एजेस अगो आई वाज, decades ago I should say, I was addressing Jerusalem, Israel में कहीं, तो there was this battle about French and English जो होता है, so I was wondering what are they fighting over languages. I said we have, if you look at our unrecorded languages, they run into hundreds, and we have India is a land of languages. If you lose a language, you lose the culture. We should always bear in mind that when we lose a language, we are losing culture. We are losing cultural ethos, the connectivity, the rituals, the entire rigmarole of the culture. तो ये सब खत्म हो जाता है। इसीलिए languages are important, और इसको पढ़ाना भी चाहिए। इसका medium of instruction, I believe that there should be 2 or 3 levels. It should not be just one. Some things can be taught, as minister also said, कि टेक्नोलॉजी में भी है, तो हम क्यों नहीं हमारे लैंग्वेजेस को प्रोमिनेंस देते हैं। I have been part of language policy at some point, so I know that we had spoken about it. We did say that हमारे regional languages को भी उतना prominence मिलना चाहिए, so that we don't lose our culture. But that does not mean that we do away with English, because all said and done, English is a language that across the globe, it is comprehensible. So ये language of progress है, so we should not shy away from it. So let there be a dual mode जहाँ है, but let our students also be aware, because हम हमारी भाषा खो रहे हैं. If you look at our youngsters, they converse with their children only in English very often. So that's where we are losing, including even in my family, I find that. So at times it pains, but we need to have this. So भाषा का इसमें कोई बड़ा battle नहीं होना चाहिए. इसको we have multiple modes of teaching. अगर आप संस्कृत पढ़ा रहे हैं, संस्कृत पूरा अंग्रेजी में पढ़ाएंगे तो कौन सीखेगा संस्कृत? तो ये सिंपल लॉजिक है, वो लैंग्वेज की बात है. बट इफ यू आर टीचिंग टेक्नोलॉजी एनआईटी में भी, तो थोड़ा बहुत तो कहाँ, but one of the biggest challenge would be to find faculty who can teach. One of the biggest challenge is that, because we are all trained in English medium ethos, most of the faculty, तो शायद कर पाएंगे. That we need to see how we actualize that, but not at the expense of progress and growth. इसको क्योंकि हम NEP also talks about internationalization.
Yes.
We are talking about, and one of my aim is to have joint degrees if we can get for our students, because we have to make our students global in many ways.
Thank you, ma'am. You just talked about globalization also. So tomorrow only we have our webinar on globalization of higher education. Shri Vinay Sahasrabuddhe sir will be there. So people can go and register at mynep.in. And one final question after that, Nagalingam sir, if you have any question, then we can take it, or otherwise we can go towards conclusion. So one question again, which is very critical to what you said. मैम, एक तो अभी जो सिचुएशन है, वी हैव अ सिस्टम ऑफ एफिलिएटेड यूनिवर्सिटीज, एफिलिएटेड कॉलेजेस. सबसे ज्यादा मेजॉरिटी ऑफ कॉलेजेस तो एफिलिएटेड है. तो हम यहाँ से टोटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन की बात कर रहे हैं कि हम ऑटोनॉमी में चले जाएंगे 2025 तक. तो एक ये इतना बड़ा ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन। और सेकंड मैम, जैसे यूपीएससी है या इवन मेडिकल की बात करें तो वहाँ चीफ मेडिकल ऑफिसर्स हैं, तो मैम वहाँ पर वो ट्रेनिंग देते हैं यही देखते हुए कि आपको लीडर बनना है, लीडरशिप बनना है। बट देन इन एकेडमिया ऐसा कोई डायरेक्ट ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम या ऐसा कोई कंडक्टेंस नहीं है। जो एकेडमिशियंस होते हैं वो ही जाके आगे लीड करते हैं। अब जैसे आप हैं, सो यू आर वेरी गुड एट लीडरशिप, हम सब जानते हैं, पर क्या ऐसा सभी लोग हैं? क्या इसके लिए कोई तरीका होना चाहिए, कोई प्रोसेस हो सकता है? How will the leaders and administrators of universities be selected to achieve this transformation?
You know, we need to look at her institution may there would be faculty who can, you need to take them on board and see whether they have. That's why we say when we give them promotion under CAS, whether they have contributed in administration. उसके भी points होते हैं। हम लोग तो देते हैं सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटीज और इसमें एज पर यूजीसी नॉर्म्स। तो इन ये कहाँ तक लीडरशिप दिखा सकते हैं, whether they can take up a challenge and turn it around, you know, that is one point. Number two, whether they do have integrity. ये सब देखकर you have to identify some faculty from each institution. अगर आपको एक, we have so many institutions, even if you go only through central universities, you know, 45 or so, 50 said, now you count from other ministries also, you can easily get 100 faculty members, easily you can identify. I believe there need to be a training. IAS officers को train करते हैं हम लोग. Why can't we train our leaders? Because, you know, यहाँ पर आप वहाँ पर if you're training 100, I'm sure you'll get at least 20 good leaders. You know, this is a churning process. And I think no leader is self-made. We rarely होते. You know, Emily Dickinson का एक बड़ा अच्छा poem है, where she says that unless you're called to rise, you will not know how high you can rise. So you need to, you know, you will know then how high you can, and then you can conquer the skies. That's what it is. So it depends on self-motivation also. You know, ये ambition ये नहीं होना चाहिए कि हमको vice chancellor बनना है, because ये position बड़ी अच्छी है. Ambition ये होना चाहिए कि हम कैसे transform कर सकते हैं. This is an opportunity that if the country imposes faith in me or my colleagues, then we have to have transformative leadership. हमको बताना भी चाहिए, because I firmly believe that your work should speak for you. You should not say हम ये कर दिए हैं, वो कर दिए हैं, नहीं. ये तो आपका काम बताएगा over a period of time. So training leaders is also, I firmly believe, we train our bureaucrats. Why can't we train our educational leaders? You know, take 5 people from every institution, if you're able to identify from every institution, and then try and as far as affiliation, that's going to be a very critical. I'm so glad you asked that. I don't know how that's going to work out, but I personally think that the degree awarding institutions हो जाएंगे, तो इनको भी autonomy मिलेगी. अब ये word autonomy is a double-edged sword. Most people think कि autonomy है तो हम तो कुछ भी बादशाह हैं, कुछ भी कर लेंगे. ये ऐसे नहीं होता है. Autonomy always comes with a greater sense of responsibility. It comes with accountability. It comes with transparency. So I think it's very important that affiliation, अभी जो colleges हैं, if you look at a lot of states, particularly Andhra and Telangana, a lot of engineering colleges have been closed down. Because one, there are no takers. Two, all these colleges came up because somebody wanted to make money. This is easy money. आप educational institution खोल लीजिए, faculty होती नहीं है. So that also, this will stop that kind of practice. So it's a good thing, good thing. I think that there's a lot of positive. I'm very excited about NEP. There's so many things that one can do.
Thank you, ma'am, for these encouraging words. Nagalingam sir, any questions over there, or should we move towards?
No questions, Ji. We can summarize. Yeah.
तो फर्स्टली मैम, आपका ऑडियंस के लिए कोई मैसेज या लास्ट कंक्लूडिंग वर्ड्स जो इस सेशन के बाद आप कहना चाहती हैं?
I guess all my audience are my colleagues, faculty है यहाँ पर, youngsters है embarking on a new journey. You will be future leaders. I think most important thing is honesty, that with which we need to work. I think if you have this quotient, I think you can move forward. Because हम कृत युगा में सुने थे कि there is austerity, there is compassion, there is honesty. By the time you come to Kali Yuga, there's only one leg of dharma, and that is honesty. So if you have honesty, you can reclaim other austerity and compassion and truth. But ये नहीं होगा. तो अभी हमको, I think it's very important that we are honest to whatever we do. वहां पर zero compromise. That's why I started by saying a leader should be zero compromise. You need to be bold enough to take it. You're not here to create friendships. You're here to create institutions. हमको popularity syndrome में नहीं जाना है. We should show our work. I think the prime example is our own honorable Prime Minister. He is a huge role model for the world today. So why can't we learn something? So I think it's very important.
थैंक यू मैम. और इवन आपने प्राइम मिनिस्टर सर का नाम लिया, आपने जो मैसेज दिया इतना सिमिलर था. मुझे प्राइम मिनिस्टर सर की एक बात याद आ गई. उन्होंने एक मन की बात में कहा था कि कुछ बनने की नहीं, कुछ करने की सोचिए. योर मैसेज वाज एग्जैक्टली सिमिलर टू व्हाट यू आर गिविंग टू द ऑडियंस टुडे. प्रोफेसर नागलिंगम सर, कंक्लूडिंग रिमार्क्स फ्रॉम योर साइड.
या मैं कंक्लूडिंग रिमार्क करूंगा अभी. डियर पार्टिसिपेंट्स, अंडर द गाइडेंस ऑफ Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Surina Singh ji, today we got an opportunity to listen to his thought-provoking information. Professor ji covered Indic-centered education, emphasized about our own rich tradition-based education. Foundation should be our educational rich traditional educational foundation should be taken back. Also, what to be taken from outside also we are ready to open. We should be open, like that madam emphasized it. And more interestingly, updating the knowledge by teacher himself or herself is most essential to take the institution to the next level. Further, as already mentioned, Honorable Vice Chancellor covered about governance. The 4 vertical bodies Madam emphasized, and more interestingly, educational leadership. Educational leader. Madam gave much importance to her training the professors as a leaders, as a educational leaders. Also in this session it is covered SWOT analysis, understanding the strength, weakness, opportunity and challenges of the institution. Then curriculum development, multidisciplinary, then roadmap for the institution. So such a very comprehensive way. Honorable Vice Chancellor Madam, you have covered very comprehensive manner. In session was very interesting, wonderful session we had. Further, very interestingly, we had a very good attendance and also participation. Thank you very much, Professor ji. Over to Sudhakar ji for vote of thanks.
Okay. Sudhakar ji, you're not audible. He should unmute.
Sudhakar ji, over to Sudhakar ji, please.
Yes, sir. Hello, am I audible now? Yes, thank you.
Yes, please proceed. Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for your kind words. लास्ट में मैं यही कहना चाहूँगा कि मैम बहुत अच्छा सेशन रहा और आई थिंक काफ़ी नॉलेजेबल जो आपने एस्पेक्ट्स कवर किए, स्टार्ट करते हुए हमारी हिस्ट्री से लेके आप मॉडर्न तक आए और आज यूनिवर्सिटीज के लिए क्या कर सकते हैं, कोर्स में क्या कर सकते हैं, लीडरशिप के लिए क्या कर सकते हैं, डेवलपमेंट के लिए क्या कर सकते हैं, एक लीडर का कैरेक्टर कैसा होना चाहिए, लीडर की थिंकिंग कैसी होनी चाहिए। तो सारे एस्पेक्ट्स जो कवर कर सकते थे वो सारे एस्पेक्ट्स आपने कवर किए, और हमने आपको इनवाइट किया, आपने एक ही बार में उस इनविटेशन को एक्सेप्ट किया, एंड देन इतना अच्छा सेशन हमारे आई थिंक ऑलमोस्ट 100 हो गए थे यहाँ पर भी, एंड देन फेसबुक ऑल्सो वी हैड रीच्ड मोर देन 1000 पीपल विद इन 30 मिनट्स ओनली, and then I was getting reports from our promotion team that more than 250 shares were already done on our Facebook live within 30-40 minutes of the start of the program, and many of the students of your university also helped and joined, because one of our friends is friends with people over there in Nalanda University, so they also joined and helped in the promotion. So that shows that how much belief and trust your students have in you, how much respect they carry for you. So thank you very much, Professor Sunina ma'am, again for accepting this invitation and for this very wonderful session. Secondly, I would like to thank Professor Nagalingam sir. You moderated the session very nicely, and then for your presence, for the acceptance. We talked with you yesterday only, but then on a very short notice, you accepted to moderate the session. You were here to help me and help all the organizers in conducting this. So thank you very much to you, sir, also. And then after this, I would like to thank Mananiya Prakash ji and Mananiya Raghunandan ji, the National Organizing Secretary and National Joint Organizing Secretary of Vidya Bharati Uच्च Shiksha Sansthan, respectively. Manya Prakash ji was also present in this session today with us. I would also like to thank Professor Kailash Sharma, who is our National President, and Professor Narendra Kumar Taneja, who is our National General Secretary. And after that, I would like to thank the audience who all were present here today and in the Facebook Live. The purpose for us in organizing these webinars is that the good word actually spreads. As ma'am, I think many of the participants through videos, I could see here that they were noting points. They were actually noting down the suggestions that we are giving. So our main purpose is that there is a trickle down effect of good thinking, of good practices from a leader to others. And then actually we can learn together and then implement slowly, that one college may have something good, it can give it to the other colleges, and then we can actually have something good at one place which can be actually implemented later across the country. So this is how we can actually fulfill our dream and slowly targets of like having good gross enrollment ratio, having good leaders, having autonomous universities, having only two different type of universities like research university, teaching university. So all of these are there. I think the audience uh, contain people of the ranks of professors, people of the rank of HODs themselves. So I think they would be directly benefited by your words today, ma'am. Thank you very much to the audience. And with this, I announce the closure of this program today. Thank you to everyone. Jai Hind.
Exit.